Thanks for your patience. Yes, no, you have kept your time. Fair play. Minister, can you tell us when you expect legislation to be brought before the House on the Land Development Agency, the number of staff the agency currently employs, and if the position of the CEO was advertised? You say that the LDA will enable the government to address traditional volatility in land prices as a result of speculation. Can you outline how this will happen? Are you planning on bringing in separate legislation that will complement the LDA, for instance a tax on unused land? Otherwise I don't understand how bundling public land and letting developers build on it will address volatility and speculation.
Deputy, for the question and for your patience. Together with the Minister for Finance and Public Expenditure and Reform, I signed the Establishment Order for the Land Development Agency, or LDA, on the 13th of September of this year. The LDA will act as a new commercial state body to actively manage the development of public lands. The Establishment Order is an initial and enabling measure to get the LDA up and running as quickly as possible, ahead of the provision of a more comprehensive primary legislative basis for the agency and its intended scope of powers and operations. Work is already underway on this legislation, and I expect to have the general scheme of the bill ready for submission to Government in early November. This will seek approval to the detailed drafting of the legislation, which will then be taken forward urgently so that the bill can be published and brought before the Houses as early as possible in the new year, with the aim of securing enactment of the legislation by Easter of 2019. The LDA has been established with 3 staff members initially, rising to 5 in the weeks ahead and increasing progressively thereafter in line with the business plan and the expansion of its development lands portfolio. As is common in agency startups of this kind, I have appointed a chief executive on an interim basis. The filling of this position is on a permanent basis, will be subject to open competition and advertisement upon enactment of the primary legislation for the agency.
Minister, as you know, I believe that this LDA will hand control of the supply of housing to a few elite entities, developers, investors, and the government won't be controlling it, builders won't, investors will. And I think that's really the wrong way forward. I'm mystified as to how he decided to appoint a former NAMA Chief Financial Officer. I wonder what expertise has he got in residential delivery. We're essentially giving up public land and allowing financiers to speculate on it, or at the same time allowing private builders to build on it. I mean, both of them would be looking for profit, and it's impossible to expect the private units in these schemes to be affordable. Now, Minister, I've introduced legislation to bring the vacant site levy to 25% and remove a lot of the exemptions of the government levy. Is currently awaiting a money message from public expenditure before committee stage begins. If the government actually wants to address land volatility and speculation, you've got to support this. What is your position, Minister? Do you agree with putting 25% tax on land banking?
And just to be clear, I'm not going to mention any individual in here who doesn't have the right to come in here and defend themselves. The Land Development Agency is the developer. It is a public developer. It will guarantee the uplift from all of the work that it will put into the land in terms of master planning the site, going for planning permission, looking for procurement, buying sites before they're even zoned for residential use, taking on board that 10 to 15-year time horizon to make sure that we are providing homes in the right places for the next 15-20 years in our country, so that we can avoid the last 2 crises that we've seen in the last 2 decades in this country. And it will take that uplift and it will put it back into affordability into these homes, and that's how we're going to do it. So the state will be developing. And in certain cases, of course, it will sell that land under licence, so we'll get it to a particular timeline, and we will get houses on public land for the general public. Social houses, subsidised houses, and houses for the rest of the public. I think that's a good thing to do, particularly in sites that are very desirable, like the Dundrum site. Everyone should have a right to be able to buy a house on that site. And that's what we're trying to do with this Land Development Agency. It hasn't been done before. In relation to the vacant site levy, I more than doubled that levy when I came into office. That's going to be at 7%, 10% over 2 years, but 7% every year after that. So if you haven't built on that site, that will rise very quickly for you and be very punitive. And we have seen instances where already the increase that we have done, even though it isn't even yet in effect, has taken sites that were vacant and brought them into delivery. Thank you.
Land site per unit is increasing by about 25% per annum. Land site. Your 7%, even if it did catch all the developers that are sitting on land banking, wouldn't bother them. Right? But with all the exemptions in it, you're going to catch bugger all of them anyway. Minister, you say that this LDA is based on best European practices like Germany. That's actually not true. I mean, in Germany, the planning law freezes the value of the land when the local municipality decides to specify an area for residential construction. If you did that here, there wouldn't be room for all the lobbyists coming into the buildings. Are you going to freeze the value of the land when it's earmarked for zoning? I believe it when I see it. Minister, you're talking about I find it incredible. You're saying that this will provide affordable housing. The 60% that are going for private use, as you say yourself, I mean, we'll be lucky if they're starting at 320 and going up from there. That's not affordable housing, Minister, for the majority of people in Ireland.
Minister, to conclude, please.
Why don't the state build them?
Just because we talk about an affordable scheme doesn't imply that the other houses sold on that site won't be affordable. Probably more correct to say that they're subsidised housing. It absolutely depends on where this land has been brought forward for development. Again, none of this land might have been developed for housing if we hadn't have brought in a land development agency or brought in a requirement for other ministers to now bring forward their entire portfolio of land banks so we can take a look and see, well, what's the most efficient use of land? Can we decant one site to another and actually deliver housing where it's needed? That's what we're trying to achieve. I know you have a bill on vacant site taxes, Deputy. Unfortunately, that bill would not make it through the House because of a number of problems in that bill. I more than doubled the vacant site levy when I came into office, and we are seeing a positive impact from that. That levy will remain in place to make sure that we do get vacant sites developed, but we also now have the Land Development Agency to deliver 150,000 homes potentially over the next 15 years, where there may never have been homes developed on public land for all of the general public. I think that's very important. Thank you.